Hello and welcome to Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle, and we've made it, Cody. We've made it through the regular season, and what a way to finish. The streak is over. I never thought I'd see it in my lifetime, but the Perth Wildcats won't be there in the finals. It's just unfathomable in so many ways, and making it even more amazing, the Tasmania JackJumpers are the ones that are there in their place, and a remarkable first season in the NBL for them. And now, all of a sudden, we're not far away from the finals beginning on Thursday night as well, so we'll talk about that on the show. We've got some awards that will be presented before the finals get underway, so we'll give all of our thoughts on that. And plenty to get through with 6 teams now starting their off-season, 4 teams battling for the championship. We're here thanks to Hoops Heaven. I'm Chris Pike, but the man you've all tuned in to hear from, the former Illawarra Hawks, the former Sydney Kings power forward, both those teams are going to be battling now in the semi-finals this week. Cody, Ellis, quite a dramatic week to be looking back on.
Yeah, that's a bit of an understatement, I think. Look, massive round, and we thought that it was all going to come down to that last game, and it did. And overtime to decide the last game and the last spot in the finals. And I can't quite believe that the Cat streak is over either. It still hasn't quite sunk in yet, and probably won't really until we see the 4 teams battle it out.
Absolutely, it's a remarkable thing. I mean, 35 years straight in the finals, and they've won 10 championships in that time, and you just assumed it was going to last forever. You've never seen it in your lifetime that they didn't play in the finals, and you'll never forget that birthday, Cody. Yeah. The day the streak ended was your 32nd birthday.
It sure was. It was like you said, I've never seen it in my lifetime. And yeah, look, there's probably a heck of a lot of Wildcats fans out there that have never seen it in their lifetime either. Crazy end to a season.
Have you spoken to your dad about it since? How did he feel about it? He was there obviously on Sunday.
So he wasn't there.
Oh, okay.
So he got struck with COVID. So he was sitting on the couch watching it, unfortunately. But look, he's upset. But he also looks at it from the point of appreciate what just happened basically in the last 35 years. How good that is and how big of a streak that is, and I don't think that'll ever be touched again.
No.
We tend to say that a lot with records, but this is one that I really don't think will ever be touched again.
Well, if you think about it, to do it again, they have to make the finals every year between now and 2057.
Yeah.
It's around. When you put it like that, it's you just can't imagine it.
No, you can't. So, and I think that's something that while a lot of the Cats fans were severely disappointed, and you could certainly see that with some of the stuff going on social media.
Yes.
You've got to just look back and respect what you guys went through. And you feel for those players and the coaching staff and all that sort of stuff, because with every year that they made the finals was that extra bit of pressure for that next season. I can't imagine how those boys felt going into that game against Phoenix. Yeah. They would have had so much weighing on their shoulders.
And they played like that too,
Well,
didn't
they did. It was a tough watch to start the game. It was a hard game to watch because, again, you look like the Cats were just trying to win rather than going out and just playing basketball. And the Phoenix kind of started off a bit slow again as well, and they took a bit to get into it. But come the second half, it was a lot better basketball game. Yeah. But yeah, no, look, I do feel for those boys because that's a heck of a streak that's gone missing, and there's no way that you should be blaming them by any stretch. But that's what's going to happen. That's human nature. But geez, 35 years.
It's a remarkable thing. I mean, for the last 15 years, every Wildcats player that I've been talking to, or anyone involved in the club really, talks about how they don't want to be part of that team that finishes the streak, and you never really thought it would actually happen. So you just thought, you won't have to worry about that because you'll keep winning. How much do you think it stings for those players being part of it? And again, you don't blame them because if Vic Law's part of that team, they probably still make the finals, you would think, because he was probably one of the top 6 players in the league this year, if not higher than that. That's how important he was, and you don't want to blame anybody, and they were up against a lot for the whole season, but you still wouldn't want to be part of that sort of piece of history, would you, if you were with the players?
No, you wouldn't, but, all good things come to an end.
Yeah.
It was going to finish at some time, and New Zealand, obviously, in the past 2 years, have gone through it the worst, being away from home for 2 years. But the Cats had a very rough year. Morrison came in.
Day before the Blitz.
He lands. takes his family home, and then he gets on a plane for what they thought was a month, and it ended up being 2 and a bit months, you know.
He'd never met his team by the time he went and joined them at the Blitz.
Oh, exactly. He could have got on a plane with them and probably known none of them. So, you know, it's really tough. And then, especially with a new coach coming in, you've got so much to implement. You know, your culture that you want to implement takes time, and you need to be there for that. You know, as good as all the Zoom meetings and stuff are now, and how good that is, it's still not like being there in person. Everyone thought the way they finished, including myself and yourself as well, the way they finished that road stretch and coming back home, I thought they were going to finish top.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to finish top. But again, they came home and they never really found a rhythm. You know, guys were out and key guys were out.
Well, I think the loss of Mitch Norton is still something that we talked about a lot, but a lot of people probably underestimate. And then just as he comes back, they lose McCall.
Well, exactly. And like I said, they could never get on a roll with their full roster. And luck plays such a big part in basketball and sports in general. People don't understand that. You know, people just think, oh, the talent wins. And it doesn't. It doesn't. You know, you've got to be lucky. And that's something the Cats have been fairly lucky in the past in coming into playoffs or that home stretch, fairly healthy. Yeah, it's a season of a lot of what ifs for them, I think. And, you know, there was games that were decided with 1 or 2 possessions, you know, and they'll obviously look back and be frustrated at that. But look, no, they went through hell again this season, and I certainly feel for them.
I remember talking to Damo at the very start of the season when they lost that overtime game at home to the Brisbane Bullets, and we thought, I wonder if that'll end up coming back to bite them. It did.
Yes, it did. It sure did. And there's probably a couple games that you can pinpoint that hurt them come the end of the season. Now,
we spoke last week and we were previewing the final round and thinking, gee, it would be nice if all the things fell into place to set up the amazing finish, and we got everything we wanted.
Yeah.
So the round started Thursday night. The Sydney Kings did the job against the Cairns Taipans up in Cairns to make sure that they stayed in second to put the pressure back on the Hawks. They won 87-77. Friday night didn't mean a lot. The Phoenix came from a long way behind, in fairness to them, to beat the Adelaide 36ers 94-91. And then also Friday night, this was the one that did matter to set up the Sunday finish. So the Illawarra Hawks got the job done against the Perth Wildcats 82-77, and both teams probably looked a little bit nervous, in fairness, in that game, but the Hawks had their full weapons there and the Wildcats didn't, and they got the job done. And then we wondered if Melbourne United would throw everything at trying to win this game on Saturday against the Tasmania JackJumpers, and in fairness, they didn't.
Did not.
They didn't. So the JackJumpers ended up overrunning them, dominating that second half with the cue in the rack for United. So the JackJumpers held up their end of the bargain, winning 83-61. Then we saw also on Saturday, I'll ask you about this later on, because the Cairns Taipans had a bit of a party, took advantage of the Brisbane Bullets, who were shorthanded, 112-98. Tahjere McCall, 42 points. He probably showed something that we didn't know that he quite had in terms of his arsenal, but the pressure was off, and I'm not sure there was a lot of resistance. Sunday, Adelaide 36ers, they put the Breakers out of their misery. I think we all are delighted that their season is over and they are now back home in Auckland. The 36ers 93-60. And then the 2 games that decided everything. So the Sydney Kings and the Illawarra Hawks, there was 12,000 people at Kudos Bank Arena. It was a fantastic atmosphere. Second spot was on the line. The Illawarra Hawks ended up winning 87-84. And then at RAC Arena, with the streak on the line, it went to overtime just to add to the drama, and probably with the pressure off and wanting to I guess, play the spoilers, the Phoenix beat the Wildcats 102-100. We've talked about how it meant for the Wildcats, but you could just get a sense, the longer that game went, the Phoenix wanted to be the team that ended the streak.
Oh, absolutely. And look, it was a tough one for the Phoenix because, I mean, they had a really good comeback against Adelaide and probably stole one there. You know, probably looked really out of it for most of that game, and then, just stormed home. But then it's one of those things that teams still come into Perth thinking, well, we've got our backs against the wall here. It's going to be tough, you know. I think the longer the game went on, the more the Phoenix believed that they could actually win. Especially going up against the Wildcats team with what was at stake. You know, coming in, the Phoenix would have thought that they were going to give it absolutely everything. And the Cats came in nervous, which we could see.
They also didn't have any defensive intensity. We've seen it all season, and it's clearly the defensive style that's changed from what we were used to under Trevor Gleeson. But, gee, with so much at stake, I was surprised that they didn't turn up the defensive pressure.
Yeah, no, it just looked like they were just trying to outscore them. Yep. And that's certainly not the Wildcats that we've known in the past. And I mean, they shot, I think it was 41 threes for the game. Yeah. That's especially in Perth. That's not a good game plan.
No.
You know, and I've said it before on here that Perth at RAC Arena, it's not the greatest shooting gym in the world. And you can look at the stats for any game. Teams don't shoot too well here, even the Cats.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very odd. And look, I think they kind of wanted to just come out and throw haymakers and try outscore them, and they would get up by 6, 7, 8 points and then not be able to put them away properly. And that's purely because they couldn't stop them.
Absolutely. I mean, and you could see the joy on their faces. I mean, Simon Mitchell was beaming up after the game, and I think he was happy that his team finished on a high, but more than anything, that's something that those players can remember forever. I still think that's a team that was good enough to play finals and probably make a difference if they made the finals. So they'll be disappointed, but as Simon Mitchell talked about afterwards, this group will never play together in that formation again, but they'll never forget what they did on that Sunday.
No, not at all. And that's a team that's severely underachieved. And the whole team, coaching staff, all that, recognise that. You could just hear it in the press conference after the game. They underachieved. To finish on a high like that is huge. You know, they got something out of it at the end of the day. Finishing with 2 wins is always good, but then, you know, being that part of history where you help to stop, you know, a world record streak would be pretty cool.
Absolutely. Now, as big of a story as it is that the Wildcats streak is over, it's just as big of a story what the JackJumpers have done. For them to make the finals in their first season is remarkable, but for them to do it with a team that I still think it could be the at least naturally gifted team in the competition, but they've done it on hard. And I spoke to Josh Majed about this earlier today. I mentioned to him that sometimes every club talks about culture, but sometimes it's just a throwaway line and not everyone buys into it. But every single person involved in the JackJumpers believes in that culture. They show it every time that they play and every time they represent that club. And I couldn't be happier for them to make the finals because I think they deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely do. And especially coming from 2 and 6 to start the season. Yeah. Everyone, again, including myself, wrote them off. At the start of the year with the roster they had, I thought they were going to finish second bottom. Because again, on paper, that's probably where they probably should have finished. But like I've said on this show before, it's not about what's on paper, right? It's what you do on the court. And they've been awesome. And I put it out on social media after the game. I said, you know, they just play harder than everyone.
They do.
And that's it.
Yeah.
You know, they go out there and they play their butts off and they just outwork. It doesn't matter who they're playing. They'll just work harder because they have to. That's how they are going to be successful. And Scott Roth's done an unbelievable job of instilling that kind of culture into the team. And to have a team like that buy in is amazing. And you even see it in the NBA. It's not about all the talent in the world. You know, Brooklyn losing 4-0 with all the talent in the world. And it's similar, you know, it's not all about the talent. It's about buying in, playing hard and doing the right thing by your club and being part of that culture that you develop from the preseason. You
can just see the excitement in the whole state of Tasmania as well. They really got behind this team, and it's fantastic to see that basketball has become so popular. And I'm glad that the NBL got in there first before the AFL went down there, and you can tell how appreciative they are to have a professional sporting team to support, and gee, they get behind their team. It's fantastic to watch.
Oh, they definitely do, and Tassie's always been big into their sports, and I think it's come way too late. The professional team down there, you know, I follow the Hawks in football, and you know we played down there for a few years and they adopted the Hawks as their team. But no, for them to have an actual professional team, and you see that everywhere just buys in. And I think they've probably got a lot more fans around the country than just in Tassie right now as well.
Yeah, I know how proud the big fella Matty Knight would be as well. Yeah. And if this was 5 years ago, he would have signed the JackJumpers and put on that jersey. I've got no doubt he's going to be pretty excited, and he He's still hoping for Mark Radford to get him that JackJumpers gear so he can wear it proudly this week for the final. So if you're listening, Rat, make sure you come on board because Matty's patiently waiting for his merchandise. So that's how fourth spot was decided, Cody. Second and third had to be decided as well between the Hawks and the Kings. And it ended up being a pretty fun game on Sunday between them at Kudos Bank Arena. Big crowd was there. The Hawks won the game, but I kind of get the feeling Sydney were happy with that. So Jalen Adams didn't play. Chase Buford afterwards said that this is a good result for us because if they had won, the game one would have been on the Wednesday night in Sydney just because of how the scheduling would have worked. Yep. So I feel like he was happy with that result, which is a strange way to finish the regular season, but you can probably understand his point.
Oh, for sure. And this is one of the games that I was really looking forward to watching, but I had to coach my D-League boys. So I didn't quite get to watch the full game, unfortunately. But yeah, look, I did. I listened to the presser after and it seemed like that extra day was really going to help them, and that's totally fair. Like I said, this season has dragged out and it's been a long grind and players are hurting and any extra days that you can get at this back end of the year is huge. And I think it's one of those things that they go on the road technically, but it's an hour down the road. It's not like they have to fly and all this.
Don't have to get on a plane. No.
Yeah, exactly. So look, I think you're right. It's probably a good thing for the Kings where they got to rest their guys for that extra day or so. And realistically, they don't have to travel. Yeah, look, I think it's probably a good result for them.
Interesting in your thoughts, though. Would have it hurt the Kings more to have to back up on Wednesday or the Hawks? Because the Hawks were just coming back from Perth on the Friday night, played on the Sunday. Gorge spoke afterwards, and he was dreading the thought of having to back up 3 days later just because he had to think ahead to Wednesday night. I mean, I feel like perhaps it would have hurt the Hawks even more if it had been a Wednesday night game one. Yeah,
for sure. Look, I think it's a tough one. And I think that, end of the day, it's probably good for both teams because you're right, they did get to rest. They did get to rest their players for that extra day. Yeah, Hawks with a tough back end coming back from Perth. Yeah, it's good all round because hopefully we get to see everyone as rested as possible and that's going to be a heck of a series.
It will be. I heard a couple of things on Sunday that I don't remember ever hearing before coming from a player and a coach, Cody. Firstly, Xavier Cooks at halftime when he was speaking to Shane Heal talked about how Chris Reid was killing the Kings. Hammer didn't follow up with a question, which I was interested by, but just for Xavier to come out and say it, he said it twice to make sure that Hammer heard him.
Yeah.
And then post-game, Chase Buford also talked about how the other two referees during the game did a fantastic job. He was very happy with them.
Said it multiple times.
He did. and again, nobody asked a follow-up question, but Chase made sure he got his point across, and he named Chris Reid openly, saying that if he referees us during the finals, then he might cost us the game or cost us the series. Have you ever heard anything like that? And what are your thoughts on a player and a coach coming out, being pretty forthright in their thoughts on a particular referee?
Yeah, that's look. No, I haven't really seen it going specifically at one ref like that before, and especially a ref that's been around for a while now, and someone who's going to get games in the finals.
Well, you'd assume so, absolutely.
So that was very interesting. And like I said, I wasn't able to see this game, so I wasn't able to watch it. So I can't really comment on how it was called. But from everything I was reading, Kings got the short end of it. A few pretty obvious calls, and I don't know. There's going to be some sort of ramifications, I'm sure, and I haven't seen if there was anything out in this past day or two, but the NBL will be dishing out fines there 100%. But yeah, very interesting going into finals. So I'll be intrigued to see if he's put on any of these games.
Well, what does the NBL do? Do they deliberately now avoid having him part of the Hawks and Kings series, or do they try to poke the bear and put him on the Kings and Hawks games?
Well, I don't know. It's a tough one because then if Sydney do make it, then does he not ref the grand final series either? You know, I'm not sure how that all goes and who gets decided on who's going to ref these games. But yeah, it's a tough one. I'm not sure which route you'd go, and yeah, I have no idea. That's a tough one, and I'm glad I'm not making that decision.
No, it'll be fascinating. Now, that wasn't the only strange thing that happened over the last week that I've I've heard for the first time, Cody. Now, you know me well enough to know that I'm probably not the scariest person to talk to, and you probably don't need to be nervous if you're having to talk to me.
Yep.
Now, I won't name the player because I don't want to embarrass him, but he's a fairly new player on the scene. And if you probably go back and have a look at any stories I've done in the past week, you might be able to work it out. But I had a player who was petrified about doing an interview with me in the past week, Cody, and he wanted to have his questions in advance just to prepare, and he was very nervous. Just for anyone in the future that's going to talk to me, probably don't need to be too scared about talking to me, do you?
Yeah, no, you don't. It's that's very interesting. I haven't heard that one.
I've never experienced that either before.
No, whether that's just someone who's not very comfortable talking to media in general and didn't want to say the wrong thing or anything like that. Because I certainly don't think anyone should be afraid of having a chat to you, mate.
No, that's what I thought. But once I spoke to him, he was fine.
Fine, yep.
He was fine. Very new to the league, so it's probably not that hard to work out. And this might give it away a little bit more. I want to talk to you about the Cairns Taipans and that game that they had on Saturday night. It's fair to say Adam Ford wasn't happy with what they dished up against the Kings on Thursday. Yep. And he was really disappointed that they were letting their home fans down. Forget about what opposition they faced from the Bullets. Brisbane were facing their own problems, but the Taipans went out and had some fun. Tahjere McCall, 42 points, best game anyone's dished out this season. I was really happy to see Majuk Deng get out there and have some fun because the pressure's been on him this year as well. They put up the highest score any team scored this year. Tahjere McCall, like I said, the biggest individual game of the season. More than anything, they rewarded those 5,000 fans in orange with a good performance to finish. Yeah, they did. They certainly did, and not a whole lot of defence played in this game. No. But yeah, no, it was really good to see, and McCall showed out. He did all weekend. He was really good. 64 points across the one weekend. It's very impressive, very impressive, and to score 42 in a game against not a whole lot because like you said, Brisbane only suited up 7 players, so that's something else that I've not seen in this league before. Only 7 players available. I'll ask you about that shortly. Yep. So yeah, it shocked me when I think Deng hit a triple and then he came up with having 30 as well. It's like, geez, that kind of crept up because McCall had kind of taken all the spotlight. Yeah. And then Frank's, again, 30 and 15, doing what he's done all season. Yeah. So that's not the least bit surprising. And geez, if they were going to even be a sniff, I think 30 was the absolute minimum he was going to have to score. Yep. So yeah, look, it was good. I'm glad that Cairns could put on a show for the faithful up there, and it was a good way to finish this season, I think. Yeah. I felt for James Duncan afterwards because there wasn't a lot that he could do in this game because he only had 7 players available to play. He had 8 on the bench, but Isaiah Moss, whether or not he was injured and ruled out or he told James that he couldn't play himself, I'm not sure. But James made it clear after the game that he had some players that just decided not to play this game. Yeah. You can probably go down the list and have a look yourself about who didn't play and figure it out. But how tough is that when you know that the 7 guys you've got are giving you their absolute all, but you had 5 guys that weren't willing to play? Yeah, and that's crap, to be honest, and I don't like that at all. Well, especially from your point of view, you would give up anything to have an NBL opportunity, and you've got some guys here that decided just to not play. Just don't want to play. Yeah, and that's extremely frustrating because, and exclude me out of it, there are so many players around this country that would give anything to put on an NBL jersey. And the 7 guys that did play gave everything. You couldn't fault their effort. Even if you say there wasn't a lot of defence, which is fair, those 7 guys still worked their butts off. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, they did. And they had no choice to because there was not much else they could do, really. And it's very frustrating. And I'm sure from Duncan's point of view, it was very frustrating. And look, it's not a good look, especially if you're trying to get a new contract or something along those lines. Well, you don't bring any of those guys back, do you? You wouldn't, no. There's no way. Unless they had a legitimate reason not to play, like an injury, that's fine. That makes sense. But if it's the last game up in Cairns, doesn't mean anything, I'm done with the season. If those are your reasons, then there's no way you should be playing in the NBL anyway. That's a frustrating thing. Okay, Cody, that was a lot to digest in a first segment, looking back on the end to the regular season. Now, we'll come back next week and we'll have the final votes in the Damo Best Defensive Award, and we'll see how it stacks up with the winner of his trophy that will be announced between now and then as well. So he'll give it our final votes and we'll announce the winner of that. We'll get the final votes from Sean Redditch in his Player of the Year award as well, and it's only between Bryce Cotton and Jalen Adams, and
rightfully so.
after the last count, Jalen was 2 votes ahead. He didn't play in the last round, so he couldn't get any votes. I'm not sure Bryce got any votes either, so I won't put any words in Sean's mouth because we know that he loves Bryce.
Yep.
But you would think that Jalen's got that award just about won. He might have the NBL MVP award around his neck as well. We'll get your thoughts on that shortly. What we do need to announce, though, Cody, is the round 21 winner of the Galen Award as the best team man in the NBL. We saw some good performances across the weekend. Xavier Cooks, I know the Kings only won one of those 2 games, but gee, without Gerald Martin there for that first game and missing Jalen Adams for the 2 games, he's going to the finals in some pretty incredible form and doing everything. He's scoring, he's rebounding, he's blocking shots, and he's a player that from the start of the season to now, he's gone to another level. He's doing some incredible things. As we talked about before, a couple of wins for the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix this week, and Brandon Ashley I thought was very good in both of them.
Yeah.
I don't have Xavier Munford on this list, but I'd potentially throw him in there as well because I thought he was really good across those 2 games as well. So I'll throw in both of those from the Phoenix. Josh Majette. Talk about guys who have changed from the start of the season to now. When we first saw him over the first couple of weeks, he looked like a point guard that didn't like passing the ball very much.
Yep.
And he loved to take shots that he shouldn't be taking, shooting from anywhere on the court, not making them at a high percentage. And I think Damo and myself talked about how we might not see him for too much longer if he keeps that up.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I would suggest that he's the second best point guard in the league behind Jalen Adams, and he's turned into a pass-first point guard, and he's doing a fantastic job of it. So he stepped up big time. Tahjere McCall, if the criteria for being the best team man to win the Galen Award is making your team better, I think 42 points and everything else that he did on the weekend, I think it was something like he was the first player to have at least 40 points, 10 assists and 5 or 6 rebounds in about 40 years.
Yeah.
It was something remarkable like that. So he did a bit of everything in that game. And a couple of the usual suspects. 2 wins for the Illawarra Hawks to clinch second spot, and Antonius Cleveland set the tone in a lot of ways. And Sunday Dech, he's finished this season, I think, in the best form of his career, and a big reason why Adelaide finished the season with a fair bit of momentum. What do you think, Cody?
Yeah. Lots of really good performances this weekend. And look, like you said, Zave's been just amazing. And since his injury, I think he's back to where he was just before it. So that's nothing but good news for the Kings and scary hours for the other 3 teams.
Yes.
So he was really good. Brandon Ashley was just awesome. I think he was just really good, just really solid, did what he needed to, lots of energy. I think he was very handy for them. Majette, again, he was a game changer. I think he was a game changer for sure. McCall was just a highlight reel all weekend, so that was lots of fun to watch.
Like his air guitar?
It was interesting. I won't say I liked it, but it was really it was interesting.
Will you pull that out next time you hit a throw?
I might have to. He was just an excitement machine over the weekend. Cleveland, I mean, I feel like we say the same thing every week about him, and again, big reason why the Hawks are where they are. Sunday finished this season really well, and really just what we kind of thought Sunday would be, the level that he would be at. So I think really good to finish the season like that. Hopefully you can start the season at that level and then keep excelling, which I really think you could. This week I'd probably give it to Josh Majette, purely for, like you mentioned, he's come so far. He's almost a completely different player than when he first came into the league. And I think he's done a really good job of getting that team in line. And obviously Jalen Adams is your best point guard, but Josh Majette has certainly made his case to be up there. And there's not a whole lot of point guards around the league that can do what he does. And I think this weekend in a massive game that helped solidify that 4th spot for him, I think he did lots of the little things and was instrumental in that win. We're
very happy with that decision, Cody. So Josh Majette, the winner of the Galen Award for round 21. What we'll do next week, Cody, we'll come back and we'll talk about the top 3 nominees for the winner, and we'll get our listeners here on the show to decide who wins, and stay tuned next week to find out who the top 3 nominees will be. And we've got a lot more awards to talk about as well, Cody. So before the final starts, the NBL will announce their award winners. Before we get to the official nominees and get your selection, I want to go back to the start of the season when the team here on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle, we made our predictions. So between Sean Redditch, Damien Martin, Matty Knight, Rob Beveridge and myself, we put our necks on the line, and you're in a good position to be able to hold us to account, Cody. So I want to get your thoughts on who did the best job. So let's start with the Coach of the Year. Sean went with CJ Bruton. Damo, Matty Knight and Bevo all went for Brian Goorjian. I went with Chase Buford. Who did the best job?
Oh, that's a tough one. Look, I think...
I'm actually pretty happy with my selection.
I was going to say, I think Buford has done a really good job. Gorge he's been Gorge, but I think he is set to a higher standard than all the other coaches anyway. So I think it's going to be hard for him to win it. But I do like your selection. I think Buford has been really good this year. I think he's adjusted well to the league, because I wasn't totally sold on his play style to start the season, and I think he's done a really good job of getting these guys to buy in. And realistically, I think Scott Roth gets it.
Yes.
But I think of that, I think you're probably the closest there.
Yeah, so we'll go to that. So the 3 nominees are Chase Buford, Dean Vickerman and Scott Roth.
Yep.
So I'm the only one that could possibly
get
it right, but I think you're right. I think Scott Roth has to get it.
I think hands down. I don't think anyone else comes even close.
Now that they've made the finals, it was just a great job of him to get them close to the finals. Now that they've actually made it.
Oh, exactly. I think that certainly solidified it.
Okay, so the next one, most improved player.
Yep.
And none of us are going to get it right because none of the ones that we selected are of the nominated 3 players. So Sean and Maddie both went for Luke Travers. Damo went for Court Noy. Bevo went for Angus Glover. I went for Will McDowell White.
You're all way off.
Sean and Maddie are probably the only ones that had any sort of a chance. Yeah. The rest of us didn't get that. Didn't get that close. Who did the best job?
Of those, I think Bevo's gone closest there. I think Angus was very decent this year.
He was.
I think a big thing for him is just finding his role, and I think as the season's gone on, he's done that. And of those selections, I think he's probably been the most impressive between seasons. Yeah.
No surprise that he chose a fellow redhead, though.
Of course. They've got to stick together, right?
Absolutely. So the 3 nominees are from the NBL: Joe Luala-Chul, Keanu Pinder, Yanni Wetzel. To me, it's an obvious choice. What do you think?
To me, it's an obvious choice too. And Luala-Chul's been really good. Wetzel's been really good. He's been dominant as well. But I think Keanu, the jump that Keanu made this year was just ridiculous. And he just keeps getting better with each game that has passed. And considering he barely played, he might have played like 2 minutes a game last year to now being a starter and double machine and significant player on that Cairns roster. I think that's a fairly obvious one.
I think so too. Completely agree. Best defensive player. Again, I'm not sure we got very close. So Sean went for Mitch Norton. Damo went for Jack White. Maddie went for Mitch Creek. And both Bevo and myself went for Sunday Detch. None of those are in the nominated group though, no. Cody. Did any of us get close in your mind?
Oh, look, Nordo's always up there, I think. And I think Sean, it's a very, very smart choice to pick Nordo because, like I said, he's probably one of the more underrated defenders around the league. And Jack White, look, that's probably a good pick, but he kind of still hasn't really found his groove yet, I don't think, from what we saw at the end of last year. Creek, look, he had patches, but I think with just the fact that their team just couldn't play defense in general, I think that certainly hinders him. And Sunday, again, it's tough that it's only 3 because I think Sunday's been unreal this year. So I think you and Bevo probably the closest, but I do think Sean is right there with with Nordo.
CJ Bruton, very unhappy that Sunday isn't part of that nominated group of 3. And I can understand his point, and I feel like he probably would have been if he didn't miss so many games at the start of the season.
Well, he
missed a lot longer than he expected with that cork quad that ended up being a lot more serious than he first thought. So I feel like he just missed a few too many games at the start and took a little bit to go. So the official nominees are Antonius Cleveland, Shayili, Xavier Cooks. I think they've got it pretty much right. We've talked a lot about those 3 guys all season. Who do you think gets it?
I think Cleveland gets it. I think without his defensive efforts, I don't think the Hawks are in the playoffs right now. Illy, again, I think he's probably set to a bit of a higher standard than everyone because we've seen how consistently good he is on the defensive end just over the past couple of years. Zay's been really good, but that timeout probably hurt him a bit. But, he's been really good. Guarding, outside his weight class and being able to switch basically 1 through 5.
He usually guards a 5 most of the time because Jerome Martin generally doesn't.
No. And Zay's so agile and smart, athletic. He can do that. He doesn't need to be a big bruiser down there. He can use his length and his quickness. And like I said, they can switch 1 through 5 and not have a problem with him guarding any of them. But I think Cleveland wins it. I
think so too. And it'll be fascinating when we come back next week to see who Damo gives his award to and who he hands his trophy to in between that as well. Now, instead of the Rookie of the Year at the start of the season, we chose our best next start just because we weren't quite sure which rookies would be eligible. So what we went with, Justinian Jessup was pretty popular. So Sean, Damo and Maddie all went for Justinian Jessup. Bevo and myself went for Ariel Hukporti. It's an interesting one. Out of the next stars, who do you think was the standout for you?
Those 2 guys were really good. I probably couldn't pick between those 2. They were really good. I think Hukporti just figured out his role as the longer the season went on, and he became such a massive piece for that Melbourne squad. And then Jessup, we knew what we were getting when he came in. Haven't seen him last year, but I think he's just lifted his game again.
He's got better in other areas. He's now a better defender. He's a better ball handler, passer, and rebounder.
Yeah, I think that's probably the big thing for him as well is making sure that he's not just that shooter / scorer. He needs to add lots of other things to his game, and I think he's done a pretty good job of that. And I think he started the season with a double-double. I think he had 10 boards along with a handful of points as well. And I probably couldn't split those guys. They've both been really good.
Yeah, the only other one is Usman Jeng, who I think got a lot better as the season went on, so he was good too. But as for the Rookie of the Year award, we've got Bull Kowal, Luke Travers, and Usman Jeng as the 3 nominees. I still don't like that Luke Travers is there because he was virtually a starter last season and now he's in Rookie of the Year contention. But that is the rules. But who do you think wins it?
I think Bull Kowal. I think that's a fairly obvious one as well. Travers kind of had a bit of a difficult time trying to find a role this year. I think he was better for the Cats last year, but he had more of an outline role and he knew what he was doing. This year, it looked like obviously I'm not sure, not in the camp, but it looked like he fell in and out of favour a bit with the coaches. And he probably didn't play as much as I thought he would. But again, he's such a young kid that, that's going to happen, especially in a league like this, that you're not going to be, it's very rare to find someone who's going to be super efficient and effective constantly at such a young age. So I think obviously deserves to be in there, being his first actual contract.
Yeah, sure.
But Usman Jeng got better as the season went on. Start of the season was, I feel like he barely played and confidence was in the toilet.
He didn't look like he belonged out there at the start.
No, he didn't. And the more he figured out the league and the more opportunity he got, he did get better. And towards the end of the year, he was tough. He was really good. He's got a lot of weapons and I think he's going to be a really good player in the future. But I think Bull Kowal has just been hands down the best rookie, breaking the 3-point record.
Yes.
So, which is, I'm actually surprised at that, seeing as he came in not being a shooter, he was a defender, and he come in and shot the absolute lights out. So
you know Shane Hill pretty well.
Yeah,
you wouldn't like any of his records being broken.
No, not at all, not at all. But I mean, that's a very impressive record.
I think he's almost 10 years older than what Hammer was, though, in fairness at the time.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, look, I think he's been awesome. He's been really good for them.
Now, we also picked our leading scorers at the start. Obviously, Bryce Cotton ended up taking that tag. So Bevo got that right.
Yep.
The rest of us didn't. So Sean went Tyler Harvey, Damo went Tyler Harvey, Maddie went Justinian Jessup, I went Joe the Wild Lachul. So it's another tick for Bevo.
It is, yeah. Bevo's doing all right. Jeez.
We might leave the MVP. Let's have a look at who we thought for the top four. And you might be able to remember who you picked for your top four as well, Cody. So let's see how we all went. We don't want to give Sean too much credit, but the scoring machine was pretty on the money. So he's gone Perth, Illawarra, Sydney, Melbourne. So he's just missed out on the JackJumpers and he went for Perth. Damo went for Perth, Illawarra, Melbourne, Sydney. So the same, he just missed out on the JackJumpers. Matty Knight went for the Hawks, the Phoenix, the Kings and the 36ers. So he missed out on Melbourne and the JackJumpers. Bevo went for United, the Hawks, the Wildcats and the Phoenix. So he missed out on the Kings and the JackJumpers. And I went for Sydney, Adelaide, Perth, Illawarra. Mm-hmm. So I missed out on both Melbourne and Tasmania. Unfortunately, none of us had the JackJumpers there. Do you remember what your top four might have been?
The more I think about it, the less I can remember, to be honest with you. Look, I think I had Melbourne in there. I know I had New Zealand. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure I had one of Illawarra or Sydney.
Yep.
And then I had Southeast, I think. But I can't really remember. But it's the first year that I've not picked Perth in it. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I didn't pick Perth, I just went, what am I doing? Like, why wouldn't I pick Perth in it? Because it's been one of those things that, like Gazy said, you pick Perth until they prove you wrong. Yep. Yeah, so probably one of the ones I got right.
Yeah,
actually.
No, you've called it well. Maddie called it well also. I've always felt when I've done this that until I actually see the Wildcats miss a final series, I'll always have them in there.
Exactly. So
it'll be fascinating where we have them at the start of next season. Mm-hmm. So none of us got the top four right because none of us had the JackJumpers. What about our championship picks? I'm fascinated to get your championship pick, and we might save that for the end of the show, but clearly Sean and Damo are not going to win because they tipped the Wildcats, and that's no surprise. Matty's still in the running. He tipped the Hawks. Bevo's still in the running. He tipped United. I'm still in the running. I tipped the Kings. Coming into the season, do you remember who you thought might have won the title?
I think I probably had Melbourne winning it.
Yep.
From memory, if you're going off form right now, you'd probably go with the Hawks.
Yeah.
I think if you're picking now. But I think pre-season, I'm about 99% sure I went with United.
They are the regular season champs now, so it's not a bad pick. The last two awards I'll get your thoughts on, Cody, and then we'll take a look at those two semi-final series. Best Sixth Man Award. So the three nominees are Clint Steindl, Shea Ili, and Xavier Ratton-Mays. That's a tough one. Who have you got?
Yeah, see, pretty much every other one has been clear-cut so far, and this one is not, because I think all three of those guys are really deserving.
Yep.
I think Clint has been so good being named captain and then being that spark off the bench for them.
Not only a scorer, I think he's proven himself to be a really good captain.
He has. He's done really well, and I think he's been instrumental for them coming off the bench and just being a spark and that scoring spark. And as soon as he comes on the floor, you have to find him. Yep. He's an absolute sniper, and I think he's been really good for them. Shea Ili, again, he's one of those guys that is coming off the bench purely because they just are so stacked. Any other team, he'd be a starter. You're backing up guys like Delhi, so who's an NBA caliber player, and I think he's certainly very deserving. And then again, Rathan-Mays comes in and he plays big minutes as well, and I think he's been really good for them. I think he's been a big part, as well as Cleveland, in turning this thing around, and he's been really good at controlling the team and running it. Oh gosh, I'm going to go with Ili. Yep, I'm going to go with Shea Ili.
I think you're right. I don't think there is a bad choice out of those three. I think it's the toughest one out of the lot.
Yep.
If we go to the MVP, no offence to Joe the Wild Lachul, but I think we all agree it's a racing two.
It is, yes.
Who have you got? I mean, Bryce was so good at having to shoulder such a workload, but then Jalen Adams was so instrumental in that 13-game winning streak.
He was.
but then he's got a mark against him for missing 7 games. I mean, to me, it's a toss of the coin. I mean, which way do you go?
It's really tough. And look, you have to take it off Bryce. You know, it's one of those things that you really have to do that, because Bryce has proven that he's the best player in the league for multiple years now. It's crazy to think that Bryce kind of had a bit of a down year to his standards, and he still led the league in scoring. You know,
Yes.
It's crazy. But look, I think Adams gets it this year. You're right. The only mark against him is he missed a bunch of games. Right, so he missed them early, and then this past probably 2-3 weeks, he probably hasn't been as good as he was in that 13-game stretch. But they don't go on that stretch without him.
Of course.
I think he gets it this year, pretty much because they're in the finals. Really.
Yep.
But again, you've got to take it off Bryce, because he's just proven time and time again just how amazing he is.
I actually don't know. I mean, before this past week, I did think it was Adams, but then he missed the last 2 games.
Yeah.
So 7 games is a lot in a 28-game season. So I really don't know. I think it's a toss of the coin, and I'm fascinated to see who gets it. And there's not a bad option there. No. I don't think anyone can complain, whoever gets it. There we go, Cody. When we come back next week, we'll see how we all shaped up and who ended up getting those awards. Now, let's have a look at these 2 semi-final series. Before we talk about them in more detail, it's fair to say they're crammed in. They've crammed in the schedule. So Melbourne United and the Tasmania JackJumpers play Thursday night in Melbourne, Saturday in Hobart, and then, if it needs a Game 3, back in Melbourne on Monday. Illawarra Hawks and the Sydney Kings, Game 1 in Wollongong on Friday, Game 2 in Sydney on Sunday, and if it needs to be, Game 3 back in Wollongong on Tuesday. Do you like those scheduling?
Nope. It's all very close and very, very close to the end of the regular season. Like, I understand scheduling and all that sort of stuff, and the season's been kicked back and back and back, and it's already running late. And I know that the past couple of years that they do want to get it back to where it was, but you know, you want the teams to be at their best for this last part. This is what they play for. So you know, it sucks, but you know, it is what it is. So
the only positive is there's not a lot of travel for both teams. I remember we had this same schedule for a Perth and New Zealand Grand Final series one year, and that's impossible when you've got that travel thrown in. But I mean, I think everyone would prefer an extra day in between games, but at least it's a very short flight from Melbourne to Hobart, and as we talked about,
very short drive.
It's just a short drive from Wollongong to Sydney.
Yeah, exactly. So look, that is a good thing. Is that travel isn't too much of a bad thing, but you know, Melbourne and Tassie still have to go and get on a flight. Yeah. So that's tough. But like I said, it is what it is, and hopefully they have a little bit of rest between these and the Grand Final series. Yeah.
All right, let's get stuck into it. Give me your thoughts on Melbourne and Tasmania in the first series, Cody.
Well, when I first thought about it, I thought that, look, United are going to win this. They'll win the first 2 games and it'll be done. But Melbourne I haven't been overly confident in Melbourne the past few weeks. Yeah, they've kind of gone a bit away from what they were to start the season, and whether that's they've just kind of let the foot off the gas a little bit, knowing that they're probably going to be that top 1 or 2 anyway. And Tassie is just on an absolute tear. They're playing really well. Look, I do think United get the series, but I think Tassie definitely steals one. And it wouldn't surprise me if they stole the Thursday one. So, yeah, I'll go Tassie on Thursday, then I'll go United Saturday, Monday.
The question marks I've got for both teams, probably for Melbourne, is if they're older bodies. I think Alex Loudon called them Grandpa's Army earlier in the season. They've got some ageing bodies with the short schedule, and also the physical and just the high energy style that Tasmania plays. My question mark is if they can maintain their intensity enough and actually find a way to score enough against the JackJumpers. My question for Tasmania is, are Melbourne just too big for them with Joe Lualachul and Ariel Hugporty? I mean, those are the 2 big question marks I've got going into the series.
Oh, for sure. And look, I think Krislovic has done an unbelievable job in this past probably month and a half. I think he's been unreal in just fighting well above his weight class. Like I've said, he had his practice because he was going up against Nate every single day, so he's used to it. But I think he's been really good with Magnay out. And look, I do think with the two-headed monster down there that it's going to be tough. Yeah, you're right. I think it's certainly not a clear-cut one, I don't think. I don't think it's as clear-cut as what it is on paper.
The other series, nothing clear-cut about this
Nothing.
one. This one either. Don't like each other either. I mean, right from the start of this season, the rivalry was being talked up before even round one. Yep. And now they meet in a semi-final series. We even saw post-match on Sunday that DJ Vasiljevic and Radden Mays were having to be separated from each other, had a bit of a push and shove. So the feeling is well and truly still there. I mean, it's a really tough one to call. They've both got their strengths. They're probably the two most exciting teams to watch in the league as well.
Yep.
What are your thoughts?
This is a flip of the coin. And if the last two games they've played in these last 2 weeks is anything to go by, it's going to be a heck of a series. And what more could you want? One of the better rivalries in the league, and clearly the players don't like each other. They've all bought into the rivalry, and the fans certainly don't like each other. And I certainly know that from experience, having been on both sides of this. And I love it. I think it's awesome. I think it's great for the league as well. And
well, is there a worse place to play in the league as a Kings player than Wollongong?
No. It gets feral, and that's part of it. And it's awesome, but you love it. Yeah. That's what you want to do. You want to go into hostile environments and try to quieten that crowd. And geez, I can't even call this one, to be honest with you. I've got no idea.
Well, if the Hawks win, what do they have to do well? If the Kings win, where are their strengths?
I think the big thing for the Hawks is defensively. They're going to score. They're going to score. But to try to stop guys like Zave and Adams and Jerome Martin, that's a tough ask.
Yep.
Be interesting to see if Cleveland matches up on Adams, because I think that'd be a really interesting matchup. Just that bit of extra length on a point guard.
That's a great call. That could be series deciding.
I think so, but Kings just need to play how they've been playing. Hopefully, they've got those guys rested that they wanted to. Jarrell Martin's going to be big time for them. I think he's a tough guard. He steps out to the three, you can knock it down, you got to drag him out. So you'll probably see Dwight Reith guarding him. And two mobile big men, which is going to be fun to watch. So, look, I don't know. I think, it's going to be defensively. The better defensive team will win this one, because both teams can put points on the board for sure.
No fear playing in each other's building either. No. So the Kings won that overtime game in Wollongong, and then on Sunday the Hawks went into Sydney and won that game. Now, the two things I want to get your thoughts on, the two matchups, you touched on it just then. I think Cleveland probably goes to Jalen Adams, so I'm fascinated to see how he goes there. And I think on the other side of it, I think Wani Swaka Lobel probably goes to Tyler Harvey to try to shut him down as well. Whoever probably does a better job defensively might end up sort of deciding who wins.
Oh, absolutely. And I think Wani's been, again, amazing this year defensively. I think he's had the big assignments all year on every team they've played. He's always been out there guarding their best scorer, their best playmaker, just to try and shut him down. And, Chase Buford spoke about that earlier in the season in one of his press conferences, and I think he's been really good. So
you taught him everything he knows.
Oh, absolutely. So, he's come so far in the past few years, and another guy that we've seen not get an opportunity somewhere and then go to a new place and been given that bit more of an opportunity, a bit more freedom, and he's just flourished. And it'd be nice to see him knock some shots down as well. That'd be very handy. But it's going to be some really good matchups.
Now, before we move on and wrap up the show, Cody, when we come back next week, we'll know who's playing in the grand final.
Yes.
Two-word answer. Who's in the grand final next week?
United Hawks.
It'd be great to see, wouldn't it? I mean, the Hawks have actually got the wood on United late in the season as well, so that would be a hell of a series. We'll know this time next week, Cody. Just quickly before we wrap up, you've strung a couple of wins together now at the Warwick Senators, which is nice to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So 2-1 now. So fumbled at the finish line against Perry Lakes in that first round. And then, got 2 really good wins on the board. But it'll be nice to get Trig back.
Yes, you'll have your coach for the first time.
We'll have our coach back, which is really good. And then hopefully Kyle doesn't take too much time off, which would be thoroughly deserved after that long season.
Yeah.
Be good to have him out there as well, because we haven't had a full squad out there yet. So
haven't had a point guard for a little while.
No,
with Corbin not playing this past weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it definitely shows. It's tough without a point guard and someone running your show. And
you have to take that role, don't you?
I do sometimes. But we had one of the young boys doing it this weekend, and it was really good. So he played really well. And no, look, I'm really excited for this squad. Lots of the young boys stepping up and playing some major minutes and doing good things. And I think once we get our full roster together and everyone's playing, I think we'll be a tough beat.
Yep, and I think Friday night you've got the old enemy, the Wolves down the road. So
the Wolves that are a completely new look.
They are.
So, look, none of the guys that you usually see in a Wolves uniform. So I think Jordan Wellstead's about the only one.
Yeah.
Other than that, everyone's either hung them up or is elsewhere now. So it's a completely new look Wolves team.
All right, so that's another thing for us to reflect back on when we come back next week, Cody. But that's been a big show. It's been an amazing NBL regular season. It might have dragged a little bit at times, but boy, it was a great finish. So it was fantastic to see. And I think in hindsight, we've probably got the best 4 teams in it. I know the Wildcats and the Phoenix made a good case, but I think these 4 teams that we've got to look forward to in the finals all deserve to be there, and they're going to be 2 great series. So we look forward to seeing how it all unfolds over the coming days. Thank you for joining us once again. Thank you to Hoop 7 for making it happen. I'm Chris Pike, and I'll leave Cody with a chance to give you some final words.
Look, I hope we see all 6 games. I really hope that both these series go to 3, and then game 3 of each goes in overtime. And I think all 4 teams thoroughly deserve to be here, and it's going to be a heck of a few days